Thank you, and hello, everyone. Thank you for the kind words. I wish I can, I hope I can live up to it. So, first of all, I would like to apologize that I can't be there with you in person on stage. I'll tell you in a minute why, and I hope that you'll find it interesting. So, not every invention that can be invented gets invented. Not every technology that can be developed gets to be developed. There really need to be three things in order for a certain technology to be developed. One is the why. It's the catalyst, it's the reason, it's the problem that bugs us and for which we try to find a solution. So if we think about, say, the last 100 or 150 years, there was a particular set of technologies that really got a boost. Weapons, we moved from wielding an iron bar and killing, somebody from a very personal distance to, well, being able to destroy the world in a button. That's not very good. But if we look at other sets of technologies, say propulsion, we moved from horse and carriage to steam engines to internal combustion to jets to nuclear. We went all the way to the moon. Another interesting technology that got developed is, of course, communication. So we went from physical, sending a letter, to wired over long distances with telegraph, and then radio, which is wireless. And today it's truly global, the internet. So we need a reason. And unfortunately, during the previous century or so, there wasn't a strong, compelling enough reason to develop things like renewable energy generation. But we'll get back to that in a minute. Now, another thing that we really need is how. There needs to be somebody, how is the capability? So for example, Tesla, Nikola Tesla, who was just mentioned, really wanted to introduce to the world long-range wireless power transmission, but technology wasn't there, physics wasn't there. We really didn't know about the structure of the atom back then. So it's not enough to have a compelling reason. We also need to be able to deliver, to execute on it. But even if we have a reason and the ability to deliver, not everything gets developed. Well, I put it to you that about 1700 years ago, the Romans had everything they needed in order to develop the steam engine. They had the metallurgy, the metal technology. They were great engineers. They knew about steam. They knew about the ability of steam to push and pull things, but they did not invent the steam engine. And that's a good thing, by the way, because can you imagine a society where a small number of people have the transformative, the technology, and all the rest are illiterate, essentially, because Gutenberg didn't invent the print press up until about 1500 years after. So there needs to be a why, a how, and a who for a technology to be developed. Now, if we look at, energy, there are really three pillars or three things that underpin the energy market or the energy industry. There's generation, and unfortunately, as I've mentioned, in the last 100 or 150 years, there wasn't a compelling reason to get us wind off fossil fuel, which was cheap, abundant, and ever there. But in the last few decades, we have seen renewable generation starting to progress rapidly, and that's because we have this sense of urgency. We have a reason. When we look at storage, it's maybe a step behind generation, but there's amazing progress done recently, as driven by things like electric vehicles and the electrification and decarbonization of industries. We're seeing very rapid progress in storage and batteries. But when we look at transmission, it seems like it has stagnated, especially if we compare it to technologies like propulsion and communication. We're still sending molecules through pipes and tankers. We're still sending electrons via wire. But recently we have started to see progress there as well with the digitization of grids and with growing wireless. So we can already charge these devices we have in our pockets from a few centimeters away. We can there are already a couple of dozen companies that are doing something akin to a strong Wi-Fi, which is meant to charge devices, IoT devices mostly, around a room environment that's obviously not scalable. It's a low power, low efficiency. But we are also seeing long-range wireless power transmission, and that's driven initially by space agencies like NASA and then the Japanese Space Agency, and very recently by the European Space Agency. And there's the starting of a program in the UK as well. But I put it to you that energy is actually following the same trajectory that communication went through. If you follow closely, you can see that there's a move from the physical to wired to wireless, but communication really became global with the introduction of satellites, communication satellites, right? And that really improved access and reduced cost, which brings me to today's steam engine moment. What my company is working on is very similar to a constellation of communication satellites, but instead of sending communication from here to there globally, we will be doing the same with energy. So in the image, you can see a prototype that I'm going to tell you a little bit about in a minute. In the middle, this is what we're currently working on. And on the right-hand side, this is an image of our constellation of energy relays. We call it the worldwide energy matrix. Now, I believe that power beaming will really unshackle energy. What we need to do is decouple where energy is generated from where energy is consumed. Before I tell you a little bit more about how it's done, I think we need to provide the why. So why do we need power beaming? I mean, Tesla was a genius, but he never told us why. Oh, he didn't tell us enough about the why. So here's why. It's mostly focused on expediting the energy transition from fossil fuels to renewables. I'm talking to energy companies all over the world. Indeed, our first commercial partner is an electricity distribution company, and renewable energy generation integrators and entrepreneurs tell us that sometimes it takes them 5 to 6 years just to get the permits to connect their projects to the grid. Mind you, it's not even the cost that is the bottleneck. Everybody wants the energy, but nobody wants the lines, it seems. So expediting renewable energy generation, bringing it online faster and cheaper is definitely a strong driver. Another one is adding resilience to our grids. We know that weather, we've seen what happened in Puerto Rico and in other places in Pakistan. We've seen what happened in California a few years ago. Weather is putting more and more pressure on our grids. We need to add resilience. Remove the wires and you remove much of the vulnerability that our lines have today. Add wireless and you would add continuity of supply. You'll add resilience to the grid. It's also great for mitigating disaster or disaster relief, indeed. So, for example, we're talking to relief agencies around the world that want to bring power back much quicker to affected communities with mobile antennas. And then there's other industries like shipping and transportation and construction and let's take, for example, mining. If you want to decarbonize a heavy industry, the go-to is electrification. Now, in order to electrify something like mining, you will have to electrify 200-ton trucks. That's not viable. That's very heavy batteries that you will need there. And this is where payload goes. And downtime for charging is really not viable in a commoditized industry. So the only solution really is powering these things on the go. Many compelling reasons. One of them, and this is the reason why we're partnering with the aerospace industry, is, well, we're not going to take wires to the moon, right? It's too heavy. So the moon economy, the moon electric grid is going to be wireless. The reason that my company is working with companies like Airbus and the European Space Agency is because they are looking to harvest energy in space and beam it to Earth. Now, as I've mentioned, there are plenty of good uses for power beaming before we take it to Earth. Now that I think we've established the why, let's chat about the how. So back to the communication analogy. When I want to use this to talk to somebody on the other side of the world or post something on Instagram, electricity from the battery is turned into an electromagnetic wave. Our device encodes some information on that electromagnetic wave, and that's beamed up there through cell towers and satellites, and eventually down back to a receiving device or devices, where the device harvests the information from the wave. Now, with power beaming, we are doing pretty much the same in terms of the physics of it, but we are harvesting the energy of the wave instead of just the information. By the way, we can do both. We can harvest the information and the energy of the same wave. So if I'll use an analogy from communication again, it's like when I do this, when I communicate, I write a letter, stick it in a bottle, toss it into the waves who carry it to the other side where somebody picks it up and harvests or deciphers the information and reads it. So again, what we're doing is essentially harvesting the energy of the wave along with the information, or just the energy, depending on the use case. Now, at this stage, I want to share with you why I'm not with you in person, and also stress out that what I'm talking about is not some distant future. It's not sci-fi. It's not 5 years away. It's not 10 years away. It's happening now. So the photos that you're seeing here are from a power beaming demonstration that we held yesterday in Munich at an Airbus facility. We beamed power across the Airbus hangar, essentially, and you can see the prototype that we've used in the photo. This will need to be scaled up, and many engineering problems will need to be solved, but it is happening now. So before this demonstration, we've also conducted field trials a couple of months ago, supported by the New Zealand government and the second largest electricity distributor in New Zealand. We're also looking at powering an island community, which is about 30 kilometers offshore. So it's happening. And look, when the internet was invented, it was invented by a government agency that was invented by the DoD conglomerate, by DARPA. And I bet you they haven't thought about, online gaming and Instagram and social media and all that. They thought about a robust communication system. But when it got into our hands, the public, suddenly you saw a burgeoning of applications, and it really changed society. Whole industries had to change. Telco has definitely changed. So, what gets me really excited is that I know why we are developing power beaming. It's to expedite the energy transition, but what I'm really fascinated about is what are the things that we can't really imagine yet? How will power beaming, how will having access to energy anytime, anywhere change society? So, start dreaming, start preparing, start planning. You have a head start. Thank you.